This is the Saber Coach Kate podcast, where I highlight the great thinkers, athletes, and coaches in the dynamic sport of Olympic fencing.
Guard. Well,
My guest today, Jerry Benson, has worn a huge number of hats over the years. Fencing club owner, referee, business consultant, fencing master, HEMA enthusiast, philosopher, member of the U.S. Fencing Board of Directors, husband, Paralympic coach, and, most importantly, mentor. Jerry has a passion for helping each individual reach his or her personal best, whether that be on the fencing strip, serving as a referee, or navigating life's muddy waters. Jerry has special insight due to multiple degrees in business, religion, psychology, and fencing, in addition to many years of personal, hard-earned experience. Many referees, fencers, and coaches owe their skills and successes to this man. Here is his story. Hello, and welcome to the Saber Coach Kate podcast. Today, I have with me Maestro Jerry Benson. Jerry, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome.
As I've mentioned to you, you've been a mentor to me and to David for a long time, and I really appreciate the opportunity to pick your brain about a few things and to learn a little bit more about you as a person and as a coach.
Well, I hope I'm not a disappointment. So I may not be who you think I am, but continue.
You may be even more.
Okay.
Okay, well, the question that I typically start with is just to ask you how you became a fencer and how you got involved in the world of fencing.
Well, I was fairly old for starting fencing. I was like 30, and I was running a marketing management consulting firm, and I always wanted to do something, and I worked all the time, and I always wanted to do something that was fun, and I always thought fencing would be fun. So I looked around. There was a junior college here had a fencing class in it, so I took it. It's just kind of on a whim, and just fell in love with it. I just looked, this is fun. I remember telling my the instructors I walked in. Of course, we already had to buy our foils. We already had those, and so and a glove. Well, it wasn't a fencing glove because we couldn't find any around here. So I had a glove and a foil. So I walked in the room, stood there, and there's I guess about 10 of us. Looked around the room. First, my instructor, obviously who the instructor was, looked around the room. I looked up in the ceiling and I go, "Is this the fencing class?" He goes, "Well, yes." And I go, "Well, where's the chandelier?" Slight pause, laughter. They went through. But it was like that kind of this is going to be fun. So I really I enjoyed it. I fell in love with it. I wanted to do it a lot more. There wasn't that much available when I did that. That's like 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't any fencing, very little fencing in Oklahoma City. Mm-hmm. So I started what I could do and tried to start training, decided I wanted to be an athlete, wanted to compete at a higher level. And hit the realization at 30, it's not the time to think you can do that. Not the level I wanted.
Yeah.
So to then change into coaching.
Okay. Well, that's interesting because I started fencing when I was 30 as well. And I do understand what you mean when you say that you weren't able to achieve the level that maybe you wanted, just because at 30, your body just can't do what those 20-year-olds can do.
Oh, no.
Just, there's a little bit of difference.
Yeah, and we didn't have vet fencing then.
Oh,
there's nowhere I could go to.
That's right. So you would have had to compete against the young ones all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that you fenced foil. Have you experienced any other weapons?
No, everybody started with foil. I very quickly, immediately, when I saw it and everything else, I was an épée fencer. And so I actually fenced épée. As we've had a discussion before, the difference between the three weapons have to do with personality and stuff like that. I like the game. I was able to understand the game, which is one of my favorite parts of fencing. The épée. Épée, for me, was the one who, or the weapon who really I can understand the game with very quickly.
What is it about épée that you really understood?
Again, I think it's the game. You had more time to play it, more time to think about it, more time to, I mean, it was just like learning technique. I learned a little bit and got excited about that, and then figured out what I could do with that. And I got a little bit higher level of understanding, a little bit higher level. So it was that continuous, which you never get to the pinnacle. You're never. It's not something, everything you need to know or ever want to know about épée or foil or saber, but for me it was épée. Are you ever going to get there? So it's always something to work toward.
Mm-hmm. That's one aspect of fencing I really enjoy too. And I was talking to some of our younger fencers at camp yesterday and telling them, you think you've learned this, and then as soon as you learn that, there's something else out there on the horizon for you to learn. And that's what's so great about this sport.
Never-ending opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell me about your mentors and other people who had an impact on your fencing.
Oh, wow. There have been so many. I received an award one time from USFA Fencing for Lifetime Achievement or something. I don't remember what it was. And I'm trying to figure out, I feel very humbled by that, especially by looking around the room and seeing who was there. And I made a statement, and I think that's it, is that I was standing there because I was standing on the shoulders of so many people. Whatever I've been able to accomplish is all because of people who have helped me. I mean, my coaching in the area of coaching, I was during the time that the top coaches at that time were Bucky Leach and Gary Copeland, Vinnie Bradford, Abdul Salem, who was my coach. I used to commute from Oklahoma City to Dallas every weekend almost to train.
Wow.
Because he was the only person there.
That's a 3-hour drive at least.
So, one way, yeah.
Yeah.
Those people were willing to. I mean, I'm a newbie and bungling my way through things because I didn't know very much. But I mean, those people were willing to talk to me. We used to travel together, and I don't think it was never a formal thing except with Abdel. But and that's why I think I really appreciated what they did, is because they didn't have to do that. I was so far from them as far as skill and knowledge. I guess maybe they're coaches, and anybody who's hungry to learn, a coach wants to teach. Yes. So I think that's those people I would come up, and I'm sure there's lots of others, but those are the ones that come to mind immediately.
Okay. You have multiple degrees in clinical psychology, theology, business, management, marketing. I mean, like, if it's out there, you've basically studied it, which is incredible. And
I tell people, if you have a master's in theology, you have a master's in business, and you have a master's in clinical psychology, first of all, about the only profession you're going to have is coaching. I mean, there's nothing going to do with any of that. I think they're kind of obvious. I became a coach because I like kids. My personal childhood was not of the greatest. I've always probably went through my life. The only thing I really missed most of my life is never having a childhood. So all of those three areas, whether it was business or marketing or business or theology or psychology, clinical psychology, almost all of those involve children somehow. Like when I was doing my internship in clinical psychology with the psychologist, I worked with children. I worked with all the kids that he had. He was terrified of children. Only wanted to work with adults, but when he had in his office work with kids, so I worked with kids, and I really enjoyed that. And then when I went into theology, I was not a minister. I didn't preach. What I did is I did administration, but then also did psychology and worked with teenagers mostly. So I'm still doing pretty well the same thing. And then in business, I was able to make enough money to make myself fairly self-sufficient early on, but also then I was able to apply those skills to help to help the churches do management of their businesses and stuff like that.
Right.
So those sound all three different, but for me, they've really only enabled me to do what I think my calling is, if you will. Mm-hmm. And my calling is to enable and help children have good childhoods so that they end up being good adults.
Wow. So you said that you decided to become a coach because you figured out kind of early on that you weren't going to be able to attain the level of fencing that you wanted. What was it like to come to that realization? Was it resignation, or was it more, you were excited about it because then you got to help somebody else achieve what you felt you couldn't?
No, I think the initial realization, so I'm not going to be able to do it at the level I wanted, was kind of a downer. And I had coached other sports before. I coached my son in volleyball. I coached softball because I'm basically a teacher. All coaches are. We're basically teachers. And I thought, well, maybe I can teach this sport. And so I got into coaching. But then I realized, especially with working with kids, that as a coach, I was probably the most powerful person in that child's life, which is very, very scary.
Yes.
And a thing that you accept and understand with fear and trembling, because you can have such an impact. You can just as easily have a negative impact as you can a positive impact. It's how you use that power, because when I was a psychologist, clinical psychologist, and I'm doing therapy with someone, I enable people to change their life. That was what I was about. But it wasn't always easy, especially with children. Mm-hmm. And because I didn't get to work many times with the parents also. So I got to have some success at it, but not, I didn't just feel like, I was really strong with that. And the same way with the minister. I was these kids' ministers, and I would talk to them and combine both what I knew about psychology and the church. It had an effect, but not really what I really, really wanted. And then as a coach, it dawned on me, wow, this is where this is at. Mm-hmm. This is how I can change the world. This is how that when I leave this world, it'll be a better place after I'm gone, because of enabling kids to learn, to become powerful, to trust in themselves, to have confidence, to learn apathy and caring. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was when I really said, wow, yes, this is it. I don't care about the not being able to compete. This was just probably a way for me to push me into what I really wanted to do, and that was to coach. Hmm.
Well, what was coaching training like for you? Did you, just pretty much learn as you went along? Were the coaches that you mentioned, did they give you lessons in how to be a coach? Was there an official training method at the time? How did you come into that?
There's nothing formal. I stole everything I could.
Just like any good teacher.
I ended up with some really good kids fairly early on, mm-hmm. and I knew that. I thought, okay, I've got to stay with them and try to stay ahead of them.
Right.
So diligently, just feverishly studied. We didn't have video back then, so I had to go to competitions, and I'd watch warm-up lessons, and I'd watch warm-up lessons, and I'd watch the coach give them and how they did that, what they were doing. I would take an old bulky camera and video it, and then come home and watch it over and over again. And Gary Copeland and I used to sit up in the bleachers, and we go to cadet World Cups or competitions overseas, and we do the same thing. We sit up there in the bleachers, talk to each other, and watch coaches give lessons, and then figure out what we want to do, take back home and steal and make it our own. So because we didn't have any formal education at the beginning of my coaching career, we had it in the middle, and the coaches college came around. But it was sometimes it was a understood mentorship, but most of the time it was their mentors. They don't even know it, and so we didn't have much available to us.
Right.
And so the training you had to really, really want to train, and you had to be very aggressive at it because it was not coming at you. It was not something easy for you. And now it's just so much easier to train. I mean, I still train. I still do it.
Right.
I probably watch, at least 5 or 6 hours a week of videos of world championships. And, there's so much stuff out there now. To learn, and there's so many different ways of doing it. And there's camps and there's clinics and there's, we've got the Coaches Academy coming up. We got all these things of opportunities to learn now that we didn't have probably 20 years ago.
Right. Well, along those lines, something I've really enjoyed seeing is the use of technology in our sport and how now we can watch all of these international competitions live. I mean, we don't have to wait for somebody to put them on YouTube, or we don't have to actually travel to those places. And likewise, we use them as training videos during our camps. And so I'm so grateful that we have the means now to teach ourselves and teach our fencers a lot easier than what you experienced.
Yeah, and one of the things that surprises me about many coaches that I know is they don't do that anymore. They don't train, but they think they have it now or they understand it. They don't train. And I guess sometimes you're so busy doing what you're doing that you maybe forget that. My biggest, if you're a professional coach, I believe that you have to be continually training yourself. You take your job serious. You're not doing it full time. If you take your job serious, you have to be training yourself constantly to learn.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about, like, for Sabre coaches this past season, we changed on guard lines 4 times. And if you weren't paying attention, then your fencers were at a distinct disadvantage. And so you're absolutely right. I mean, you got to keep educating yourself, and we're expecting our fencers to keep learning new things. And I think we need to have that same expectation of ourselves. Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I did epee, by the way. We haven't done changed epee at all. We changed maybe the scoring, how many points to score during the DEs. That's it. We haven't changed anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what you could change about epee, actually.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Okay, well, tell me about your experience coaching wheelchair fencers. Not a lot of coaches get into that aspect of our sport. How did you get involved in that?
Well, Liz Stawitsky, another mentor, asked me would I be interested in coaching that because it was just developing and starting in the United States. And I said, well, I don't know anybody. I didn't have any athletes. There was a lot more fencing in Oklahoma, but it wasn't the number one sport in the state. So we didn't have people coming by and going, hey, we've heard about wheelchair fencing. Do you teach wheelchair? But I told Leslie I would, and he started training everything else. And And my very lovely, beautiful woman came to my club in a wheelchair and said that, yeah, I could do wheelchair fencing. Try it out. So I said, well, I have students, so now we're going to go. And so I started training this woman, and she did very, very well at it, worked very, very hard at it, which was key because she was professional. She was a college professor, so that took up a lot of her time. She had 2 kids to raise by herself. So she committed time to that and then did pretty well with it. And then we started going international, traveling together and everything else. And to make a long story short, she made 2 Paralympics. The really great accomplishment was that she ended up becoming my wife.
Yes.
So you never know when you're going to get positive reaction. So, but that's how I got me to talk to it. And then Susan, my wife, decided to be a student, and that's how I did it. It was like the teaching of wheelchair fencing is just like teaching a child. I don't mean that in the middle. I mean that in the sense of what they can accomplish, because they can now become find a way that they're not handicapped. They can do anything. We would travel. Some of them, we were in Florence on the gondola boats, and for the first time they were willing to risk it and go out there and try that. And they got on it, and that was just a great thing for them. And so what happens is they find out what they can do, not what they can't do.
Right.
And so it's like enabling a child to have confidence in themselves and to try different things and see what happens and learn from it. And so I think what happened in those cases with these people was that they found out that because they would probably be athletes anyways if they weren't in a chair. Mm-hmm. But I think now that I'm in a chair, I can no longer be an athlete. And we changed that and said, no, you can be an athlete too. And so I think that was it, that enabling of people's lives is what that was all about for me.
Wow, that's great. What are you most proud of as a coach?
Wow. The lives that I think I've changed, I've been doing this long enough that now I had when I had my club, I had like 2 or 3 of my past students come back with their children.
Wow.
And, they've had very successful lives, have done very well. Now they're having children who are coming in and they're training there. And so I think seeing how lives got changed in the long term, very, very long term. I feel very lucky in that I've been able to see that. Been around long enough to see that actually come to fruition, and it gives me hope for the future. In that that I've tried to do that, continue to try to do that, so that even the next generation will be even better, and that all gets passed on. Mm. It's kind of like for me, it's kind of like the roots of a tree that just keep spreading and spreading, and it becomes more and more and more of it. It doesn't happen overnight. The world doesn't change overnight. It changes one person at a time. And the more persons that I have been able to have confidence in themselves, believe in themselves, feel challenged, and care, I think that the more the world will finally end up changing. So I think that's my biggest accomplishment is that, and some of that, being able to send some kids to colleges, mm-hmm. That's changed their lives, given them opportunities that they may not have had. So, I really enjoy seeing people grow stronger, braver, and more caring. And I see that now actually happening.
Wow, that's quite a legacy. That's really great. Is there anything that you wish that you could change about your coaching career? Any regrets or something you wish you could do over?
Probably not. I really enjoyed my life as a coach. If I was going to have anything, at almost 71 years old, I would like to have more time.
Yes.
But I guess everyone's 70 years old, more time. But it would be nice it's like, I've learned so much and everything else, and that I just would have more time to pass that on even more.
Yeah.
I think that would be, but that's not really new to, or that's not just for coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like when you get to the point that, wow, I'd really like to pass more of this on and have more time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Your career goes. Now, I made mistakes. I bumbled my way through it half the time, but at that time I was also always pushed and always strived. So life has always been very exciting to me, and it's always been a very positive thing. Make I'm fairly well a positive person, mostly.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, we've done a lot of talking about the Olympic sport of fencing, but you are involved in another kind of fencing. You're involved with the Historical European Martial Arts, or HEMA, and you help create the Redlands Rogues. And I believe y'all perform at Ren fairs, and as someone who likes Ren fairs, I really admire people that can do that kind of sword play. So how did you get involved with the Redland Rogues and HEMA?
Well, I was a stage choreographer for a long time. I think I've always been fascinated by the sword, and I'm somewhat of an historian. I wouldn't call it a historian, but I'm interested in the history of the sword and how that's affected mankind and how it developed and what it's done in both good and bad. And I've always been interested in how the sword was used. And is a German longsword any different than a rapier, any different than a cavalry saber, and any different than a court sword? I mean, is there any difference in them? And so trying to figure out if there's something everybody's already known, I don't have to redo it again. So all I can do is figure out what it was. So I've always been interested in that and in the sword. So anyway, anytime the sword was being involved, I was interested in it. And choreographing was one of those areas. That's an interesting way of using a sword. How is it done? How do you do that? How do they create what they create in movies? I did stage choreographing independently, just on the side for colleges and others. Sometimes we actually did a couple of movies because they came here from the city and they needed someone to do the stage fighting for them. So I got involved with that because it involved the sport. The same way with HEMA. Matter of fact, one of my students used to be one of my fencing students. Is now, I think, well, actually, just coming back from Europe, he may be better than that. But I think he's like sixth in the world right now.
Wow.
In German longsword. And but it's not what people think. It's what I liked about German longsword is that they're reading the old text and they're trying to reproduce the moves of how you would wield a German longsword based on these very, very old texts written in probably the 1600s, a lot of them. So it's not just going out there and banging away at each other with a metal sword. They're trying to recreate the actual styles and actions that was done during that time. So that's what I like about it. It's as much academic as it is physical. Pretty well the same way with combat, which Red and Rogues were. They were a stage combat group. And we actually used Ren fairs to train a lot because a lot of my people were put on stage as background actors or whatever when they were doing either movies, sometimes a couple of movies, but also when they were a masked fight on a stage. Well, you got to have a lot of people who know how to wield a sword out there and not either hit themselves or somebody else. So a lot of them would get those type of jobs.
Okay.
We used the rent fairs to kind of train our people and develop skits and scenes and stuff so we could recreate those later. If someone came in and said, look, we need to know how to, do stage combat.
Right.
So it was the challenge of trying to figure out those different things and try to keep up with them because they, the more we read the text and the more we see it, we may do a text, let's say the German longsword, we have it down, we know what it is, we do it, perform, it works. But then we'll go on to the next, and then we'll maybe circle around to that place. Say, you know what? Maybe this is what he meant when he said this. And we'll go back to the same one that we started off with. We look at it, and then maybe make some changes to that. So it's a constant process that we would be at. Of course, stage combat's constantly changing. Now we've got all the special effects and all the stuff on TV because people think when they think stage combat, the vast majority of people, probably at least 80%, I think, all think about film. Whereas there's a huge market and a lot of need for stage across the United States and the world. So, those people who attend plays and like Shakespeare's in the Park and stuff like that, where they're being actual plays, they all need, and it's much more difficult to choreograph than it is a film.
Yes, we figured that out when the Fort Worth Opera asked us to do a lightsaber scene for their gala. It takes such a long time, and I mean, we didn't know what we were doing, so I think it took even longer. Now, it's really fun, but oh my goodness, there's a lot more work to it than you realize.
Yeah. But as much as you thought that that you didn't know what you're doing, you knew more than what anybody else did because you understood. And this is where the crossover comes, and all of that, whether it's stage, whether it's HEMA, it all involves distance, timing, tempo, right? And you've got to know where you're at and where your opponent or your coworker is at. So those principles that we have in fencing all apply to that, to those other two areas, just as much, matter of fact. So already knowing that, you had a huge step ahead of anybody else, because if anybody else is stepping in, you'd probably have people hurt. Yes.
Well, especially the person wearing the Darth Vader mask who couldn't see anything.
Yeah. The other thing is, you may choreograph the fight, but then you've got costuming, you've got props, you've got the stage people, develop the stage, and you go, slit boots won't work. No, you can't have a door here because, and this railing will not work. And this costume is very beautiful, but all the blousiness can get in the way. No one can fight in that coat or dress or whatever. So yeah, it very much is a collaboration when you get on stage.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Yeah. There was a lot more spontaneity to it than I realized, too, because the audience was so excited, they kept pressing forward to see more of the action. So we didn't have as much space as we needed to do all the cool twists and stuff that we wanted to do. So a lot of improv involved as well. Okay. Now, another aspect of your fencing career has been refereeing. How did you decide to develop that part of your fencing?
Well, again, Oklahoma not big. When I was coaching and teaching my students, like I said, I'm going to World Cups and I'm going to national events and I'm watching and I'm going, okay, this is what's being done, this is what's being called. And so I come back and I start teaching that. Well, what would happen is my kids would go to a competition and they would do what they were supposed to be doing, and there was no referee around here, especially locally or regionally, who knew anything about what that was, and so it wasn't being called correctly. So a parent came up to me. One of my parents says, she says, why is she not getting those points? I go, well, the referee's not seeing the action. He doesn't understand what's going on. He says, well, why am I paying you money to teach my daughter something that nobody else can see?
Huh.
Oh, well, that's a good question. And so I thought, for me to enable my students to excel, we've got to have better referees around here. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't know what that entailed. So I became a referee, took my study, took my exams, started refereeing. Again, I had mentors in that separate field. I had, Sharon Everson was a big mentor for me. Joey Baumgart was a mentor to me. At that time, really the only other person around was Greg Dilworth. Greg was a fairly good foil and saber referee. And so Greg was a big mentor for me. He's in Texas and I'm in Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. But he helped me to learn. And then I started getting ratings. And then when I started getting ratings, I started training other referees around here. And then I started training referees. And then we got the Southwest section. We got together, a group of us got together, mostly coaches, and said, okay, we have got to develop a regional referee training program so that if we develop really good kids, they're going to be able to be successful here. So we got together and developed a regional referee development program. Very effective and worked very well. As a matter of fact, now our region is well known for its very high level referees. And matter of fact, if you're a referee from the Southwest region and you're being introduced to a national level, it's pretty well an understanding that you've been trained well.
Yes.
And that you know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And that's not true in other regions of the United States, even those who have a lot more referees and a lot stronger referees. That we have a very good reputation for doing that. And now we have a better shot at that what we teach our students, someone's going to be able to see and help.
Right.
We're still, none of it's perfect, but we're a lot better off than what we were.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds like the ultimate, coach's manipulation. The referees aren't making the calls you want, so you're just going to train them all to see it exactly the way you want. That was really smooth.
Sure. That makes sense.
I know that there's a lot more to it than that, but and you put
I like
and you put a ton of work into it as well. And I know that that's something that people really appreciate about you is all of the mentoring that you do as a referee. And along those lines, you have hosted many training clinics and you've mentored countless referees and coaches. So if you could only offer 3 pieces of advice to them, what would you tell them?
Care about your students more than you do your stuff. You must train. You must train harder than your student. A coach who trains less than a student is going to be less of a coach than what he can accomplish in the student needs. And then be professional about what you do. Professional means you care for your sport and your profession. This is how you interact with other people, other coaches, athletes, and so on. So I think that would be it. Care, train, and be a professional.
Okay. For a while, you were the owner of Redlands Fencing. You created Redlands Fencing. And I know that you have passed that on to someone else. But tell me about how you create a basic philosophy and a club culture when you're designing and creating a fencing club.
Well, I guess there's 2 things. One is a business philosophy, if you will. And that's why I've been able to create my training and marketing and management helps me do that. I've opened, I think now it's 5 fencing clubs here in Canada. They were all at one time And that philosophy comes from U.S. education is what sort of you provide in the program. I mean, you want to be a recreation club, you want to be an inmate club, you want to be only elite club. And there's no wrong answer to any of those. You just have to decide what is it you're going to do. The second question in a business is who you're going to do it for or with. So from a business standpoint, I think I've been successful because I've been able to apply basic business principles. The second part of that is that part of your brand, if you will, is why. Why are you doing it? Where's the need out there that needs to be fulfilled? And this will have to fit with your personality as much as anything. So my philosophy from that has always been is to care. Yeah, it's nice to win medals, and they have students that do that, and it's nice to get recognition for being on world teams and stuff like that. I'm not saying anything wrong with that. That's just, for me, those are nice, but it's not the philosophy that I have. And the philosophy I always had to do with the caring and the support and the teaching of children, and also adults. I've been able to accomplish some of that with adults also. But I think that my philosophy was to care about kids and teach kids life lessons, because one of the things that attracted me to fencing, especially the fencing bout, is it is life in a very short time period. You have something you want to accomplish life, and there's somebody else that doesn't want you to. And you have to figure out a way of doing that. Mm-hmm. Many of us are taught to drop out if it gets too hard because it ain't fair. Whatever it is, it ain't fair. The referee doesn't call it right. The other guy's cheating. I don't really care. I don't want to do it. There's all kinds of things pushing us today in life and on the fencing field. But when one learns to not let those things prevent them from accomplishing what they want, and that they have confidence in that, I may not know it now, or I'll figure it out. They have respect for what they want to accomplish, and they have respect for others. That all happens in a fencing bout. Mm-hmm. It happens very quickly. It's 3 minutes or less. So my philosophy was to make sure that when my kids got on a strip to fence somebody, they had those attributes. They had confidence in themselves. They understood responsibility. If you don't like the way something's turning out, you change.
Mm-hmm. Could you describe your coaching philosophy for me?
Yeah, there's a woman named Ruby Payne. She's an educator, and she predominantly worked with high-risk kids in Houston. And she made a statement one time that learning only happens in a relationship. That a relationship must appear before any kind of learning can really take place. And so my philosophy, if you will, in coaching has always been I have to develop those relationships. I have to show the kids what it is that I would expect from them. Not just tell them about it, but I need to show it. And so that they see someone who lives out of that lifestyle, if you will. And the kids have got to trust you. They've got to know that they can. It's all right for them to quote unquote fail in front of you, as long as they learn and try to correct it. So I think that without a relationship, that's why you can't teach fencing or anything else of any significance. I think from a book, from a video. So that because with those, you don't have any kind of relationship. And I think the learning's much, much more difficult. So I always make sure that there's an atmosphere in my club, my coaches, and myself that we develop trusting relationships.
Yeah, that's super important. You're absolutely right. One thing I really admire in you is your ability to understand the mental preparation and toughness needed for fencing. Can you explain how you help your fencers acquire those skills?
Yeah, and it's kind of back to what I just said. You have to have that relationship, and because I want them to know that they have support from me, that I support them, that I believe in them, that I have confidence in, that I have expectations of them. Then you put them under stress. You develop a certain level of distress based on their age, what they can handle, where they're at with that, and then right after that, you give them support. And then you do stress, and then you give support, and you do stress, and that's just an ongoing process because you don't give them the ultimate stress to begin with. It always has to be done at a pace that they can take. Mm-hmm. But nobody is going to want to go into a stressful situation if they don't think they have any kind of support.
Right.
So there's that cycle of stress and support. Well, let me take that back. First, support. Develop the relationship that you do support them. And you care about them. Then enable stress at what you think is their level, and then do the support again. And when they learn how to deal with that level of stress or that kind of stress, then you give them the support and go to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's shift a little bit to the political side of U.S. fencing. You have served on, there's a lot of it, I know. You have served on many committees and boards over the years. So, in your opinion, why should fencers participate behind the scenes like that?
If you want things to get better, you have to be involved. I think that's back to the thing of being responsible, that if things are not turning out the way you want, then you have to change, you have to do something. That's the same with that. I hear a lot of people complain about the national office and USA Fencing and the board of directors and the referees and everything else. They don't do anything. All they do is complain. So I think that the more all of us get involved, the more commitment we make to the organization, or whatever parts of the organization we think we have that we can help, then the organization will change. It'll continue to grow. Growth only happens when there's change. So now I'm not talking about a revolution or rebellion, but change should gradually happen. And how that happens is I think back with people get involved, they help try to solve a problem, and they do it in a professional way, by working with people and treating people with respect. So I think you can't complain about the way it is unless you're offering some way of doing it and willing to work to have that happen. And that's why I think, in any organization, 10 to 50% of the people who belong to it actually do the work, and the other group is just there. Most of them are complaining. So I think that whatever niche or whatever area you're interested in, to try to be involved in that. And, we're a volunteer organization predominantly. Mm-hmm. And most of what we get done is done with our volunteers. So I think in order for the USA Fencing to change and to get better and improve, involves people getting involved in whatever area they want.
Right. During your time on the board, what achievement were you able to help bring about that you are most proud of?
Wow. Well, twice was able to get us out of severe financial distress, once to the point we were almost bankrupt. Mm. And we got out and turned ourselves around. And it wasn't me that did it. There were several others who were involved with it. I was just part of that group, but driving in saying, look, we've got to do something about this, and so forth and so on. So when I say this, none of this was done by me. It was all done with other people working very hard and having a lot of concerns. Mm-hmm. I think the other one, though, I think the really big one was when I started working with in USA Fencing in various levels and committees and commissions and on the board, we were for lack of a better term, we were like a small family hobby. We weren't. We didn't think professionally. We didn't act professionally. We didn't see ourselves as a big thing. It was a small family of people, and we just kind of ran it out of our back pocket, and it based on kind of who you knew and who you and coalitions that were done. But it was almost all done in the background, and we kind of like we didn't really want any change to happen because everybody was comfortable with what it was. You're in the family. Everybody's in the family. And we went from that to what I would consider ourselves a professional business. Mm-hmm. We're professional now. We make decisions based on professional procedures. We have gone from understanding ourselves as being a small family hobby to a very strong professional organization. We get results now from in Olympics and World Championships, everything else we never got before. We were settled. We were all right to be settled with like number 32 or something like that. Right. And now that's seen as developmental. Mm-hmm. But we've also now are conducting, especially at the national level, where we have a lot of professionals that we've hired and everything else to accomplish much of the stuff that we really shouldn't be doing. And the board of directors has gone from either a fire department running around putting out little fires that half of the time they created, and also they were like a board of directors, and I've served on several, profit and not profit. Our board of directors at a time did not understand what that job really was. And it would be like being on the board of directors of Ford Motor Company, and the board of directors has a meeting, and we want to discuss should the cigarette lighter be put on the left side of the panel or the right side of the panel. Yeah. Well, that's not the job of board of directors. And we would do that. We would micromanage and do this stuff that we really didn't need to do. We're what our job is to look at the huge picture. We're the ones who set the brand. We're the ones who set the vision, if you will. Mm-hmm. And then we trickle that down into people who are responsible to see that gets done. Mm-hmm. And so it's the upper management. You don't get any higher manager than the board of directors of any corporation. And I don't care whether it's a profit or not for profit. And now I think we still have some people who struggle with that. Who want to bring up this individual item and say, well, wait a minute, that's not our job. Our job is to find out who's in charge of that and tell them this is what we want done. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the big change that I've seen, and that's why I think we've improved in many areas. Do we have more areas to improve in? And along, yes, but I think now we are structured in such a way and see ourselves in such a way that we can enable those changes, mm-hmm. Whatever they are that come up.
Mm-hmm. Tell me your favorite fencing story. I'm sure you've got plenty.
Yeah, but not a favorite. Okay. My favorites, and this is why I have so many of them, are normally funny. Mm-hmm. It probably at the time it wasn't, but later, after I survived it, it was. There's just so many. I mean, I have stories because, like you said, I've been involved with this organization in various ways. I have funny referee stories, and I have funny coaching stories, and I have, and I really don't have a favorite.
Okay.
Per se, I have a bunch of them, but not a favorite.
Okay. Well, let's finish up this interview with a mixture of famous questions from James Lipton from his program Inside the Actors Studio, and Marcel Proust, the French guy who originally came up with this idea of lists of questions. So here's the first one. What is your favorite word?
Yes.
What is your least favorite word?
This is a tough one given the first one. No.
How did I guess? What sound or noise do you love?
Humming.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Gunshot.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
When I was a kid, I was going to be a doctor.
And
Probably probably a child's doctor is what I would probably.
what profession would you not like to do?
I would be a very, very bad accountant.
Yeah, I can't imagine you in that role at all.
A great job. Don't get me wrong. Great profession. Just not something I could do.
Right. Where would you like to live?
Florence, Italy.
What do you value most in your friends?
Kindness and apathy. No, not apathy. I'm sorry. Not apathy. What's the word? Where you can understand somebody else's feelings.
Empathy.
Empathy. Thank you. That's a little different than apathy.
Just a little bit. I was a little surprised by that, but, maybe you just don't care.
But you're kind about it.
Who is your hero?
Oh, wow. I don't have any individual person. I think I would say a good father. Any good father is a hero because the job is so tough. So much rides on it. We've all been poorly trained of how to do it because we've all been trained by our parents who were not experts either.
Right.
So I think, and of course, a mother would be too. I don't want to make that shit, but I think any good parent is got to be in my opinion.
Okay. And finally, what is your motto?
Care about life. Have empathy for life, yours and others. And if we care about this life, the next life will be better. And I don't mean that just in a spiritual way, but also in a physical way. That the future for us human beings will be a better place if we all just kind of care about life, make it the most important thing.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I really learned a lot of good things about you.
Well, I appreciate that, and you understand that comes from making lots and lots of mistakes. So this is not stuff that I started off with, at the young age of, let's say, 20, and I started living this way. This is stuff that you have to risk, and you have to get out there, and you have to make lots of mistakes, and then you learn from them. And so that's why I just don't kind of understand this as my life as being a great thing, and why would anybody want to interview me or that? Because for me, it's just kind of like, yeah, but if you knew what I had to do to get here, it wouldn't be that impressive. So, but I appreciate you. I appreciate the offer and you even thinking about me for something like this.
Well, thank you.
So
thank you for teaching us. I hope that others learn as much about our sport and about you as I have. As always, a big thank you to my friend Tony Escueda, who is the editor and the creator of all of the music for these podcasts. I couldn't do this without you, Tony. Thank you very much. Also, thank you to my sponsor, Cutting Edge Fencing, who was the supplier of the Saber Coach Kate podcast swag that some of you have been collecting at Summer Nationals. And finally, a huge thank you to all of you that have come up to me at Summer Nationals to say that you've been listening to the podcast. I really appreciate your support and your enthusiasm for this project. Next week, I'll release a special edition of this podcast that is brought to you live from the Salt Palace in Salt Lake City, Utah, where Summer Nationals are being held this year. Each day at Summer Nationals, I am conducting 1 to 2 minute interviews with a variety of participants, including referees, coaches, athletes, and vendors. Tune in next week to hear that special podcast. You can also visit my blog, sabercoachkate.wordpress.com for articles about the dynamic sport of Olympic fencing. If you have any ideas for interviews, comments, or suggestions, you can email me at sabercoachkate@gmail.com. I hope to hear from you soon.